the mighty DPS warrior. If you love playing Arms or Fury in Vanilla and TBC, you're going to love it in Wrath of the Lich King, with amazing additions to its arsenal, a super fast-paced combat as Fury, a highly sought-after Arms DPS to bring that 4% physical damage to the raid, ending the expansion as an absolute massive pumper once you're wielding two big two-handed weapons and you've got your hard armor pen cap. You're going to be an absolute beast. It may seem like it's a slow starter out the gate in tier 7 just due to the limited amounts of armor pen that you can actually obtain, but once you go into Alduar and start getting yourself some armor pen items into TOC and beyond, you will be a real big pumper. Or small pumper if you're a gnome. Whilst you may hear on other YouTube videos that warriors are not wanted, they're sad pandas that sit on the bench, I disagree. During the build up to TBC, we heard similar things, that DPS warriors are useless, they're going to be sat on the bench, and look at them now. Is it going to be your time to prove everybody wrong in Wrath of the Lich King and come out swinging? I truly hope so. Let's dive into all the changes that's going to affect you as a DPS warrior in Wrath of the Lich King. Right, guys, so we've done Prot. If you haven't seen Prot already, feel free to check that out. If you already have seen Prot, the next few minutes, I'm going to put timestamps below, but I'm just going to use the same changes that I went through in the protection video because I covered all of the specs. It covered what's changed for Arms, Fury, and Prot, even though it was protection, because ultimately all the abilities that you get for all three specs. So if you've already seen the protection video, you might want to skip over the next couple of minutes. But as I say, there'll be timestamps down below, and then we'll get into the talents. And finally, we'll have a look at all the glyphs. And there is a lot of glyphs. Currently in TBC, Berserker Rage, which the warrior enters a Berserker Rage, becoming immune to Fear, Sap, and Incapacitate effects, and generating extra rage when taking damage, last 10 seconds. That requires Berserker stance at the moment in TBC. In Wrath of the Lich King, Berserker Rage can be used in any stance. Challenge and Shout is a whopping 10-minute cooldown in TBC. It's now down to 3 minutes in Wrath of the Lich King. All of the stances have gone through minor changes, so Battle Stance now increases your armor penetration of all your attacks by 10%. Defensive stance, while it doesn't say it, actually had its threat increased by 45%, and instead of reducing the damage you deal by 10%, it now only reduces the damage you deal by 5%. The reduction of the damage you take is still 10%. And Berserker stance still gives you your 3% crit, but it now only increases the damage you take from 5%, which is actually down from 10% in TBC. Disarm's rage cost has been reduced from 20 rage down to 15 rage, and it also disarms ranged weapons as well as melee now. Mechanically, how Intervene acts is exactly the same, but it also now reduces the threat of the target that you intervene by 10%. A great one for protection warriors is Mocking Blow has not only been reduced to a 1-minute cooldown, but it's also usable in defensive stance. One thing worth noting is the damage portion of this has been removed completely, and it only has 1 rank now, but if the target is tauntable, it also deals weapon damage. A couple of minor ones that are neither here nor there, but Pummel also only has 1 rank now and causes no damage. Exactly the same with Hamstring, it only has 1 rank now and causes no damage. Overpower no longer has a portion of its damage as bonus damage, it is now just flat weapon damage. You'll have much more frequent use of the ability thanks to the talent Taste for Blood. Recklessness is now only on a 5-minute cooldown, and it's had a slight change where your next 3 special ability attacks have an additional 100% to critically hit, but all damage taken is increased by 20% and this lasts 12 seconds. Same goes for Retaliation. This is now also on a 5-minute cooldown, but the duration has been reduced to 12 seconds, as have the charges. Much like all the other utility abilities, Shield Bash now deals no damage and only has 1 rank. Shield Slam's now available to all warriors. This is no longer a talent, as we will see when we get to the talent section. Shield Wall is also on a 5-minute cooldown now and reduces all damage taken by 50%. Mine shows 3 minutes because I'm actually using the Glyph of Shield Wall, which reduces the cooldown of Shield Wall by 2 minutes, but Shield Wall will now only reduce 40% damage. We'll talk more about that in the Glyph section. Where Slam ordinarily resets the swing timer, all it does now is actually suspends it. So if you were 0.1 second away from your swing timer resetting after using Slam, you will almost instantly hit with it. Thunderclap damage has been increased, but so has the cooldown, and it now affects all targets, which will quite literally make every protection warrior watching this video right now jump with joy, hopefully. One thing to note here as well is the ability actually counts as a ranged attack, so it gets double the amount of damage from critical strikes instead of 150%. Your Taunt now finally can be used at range. No longer is it just restricted to melee, it's now got a 30-yard range. Intimidating Shout has also had its cooldown reduced, it's now only on a 2-minute cooldown. Both Battle Shout and Commanding Shout have had their range by default put up to 30 yards instead of 20 yards, and you can increase this up to a maximum of 45 yards with 2 talent points. When it comes to Blood Rage, you now get an additional 10 rage instantly, so it now gives you 20 rage and then 10 rage over the next 10 seconds. Execute will now never use more than 30 rage because it will have the 15 rage cost that it's got by default, and it will use up to a maximum cost of 30. Shield block has gone through a very substantial change. This is showing a 40-second cooldown, but it's actually a 1-minute cooldown, but it's currently affected by my talents. What it does now in Wrath of the Lich King is increases your chance to block and your block value by 100% for 10 seconds. It's an amazing ability to use on the pull, just so there's no real quick spike damage coming in, and obviously very useful when it comes to high periods of damage that are predictable. And a real minor one, but I thought it was worth mentioning, if you're leveling a warrior in Wrath of the Lich King, Victory Rush is now trained at level 6. And warriors get some very nice new abilities. So you've got Heroic Throw, which is a 30-yard range on a 1-minute cooldown, which throws your weapon at the enemy, causing 1082 damage based on attack power. This ability causes high threat. So very nice for tanks. Then you also get Shattering Throw, which is on a 5-minute cooldown. It's a 1.5 second cast time, and it throws your weapon at the enemy, causing 1082 damage based on attack power, reducing the armor of the target by 20% for 10 seconds, or removing any invulnerabilities, such as a Paladin bubble. So absolutely amazing for both PvE and PvP. A warrior with healing, you say? So Enraged Regeneration on a 3-minute cooldown costing 15 rage, you regenerate 30% of your total health over 10 seconds. This ability requires an Enrage effect. It then consumes all Enrage effects and prevents any from affecting you for the full duration. Only really be used in case of emergency because you don't want to remove your Enrage effects, but like you can see, it heals for really, really good amounts. So I'm going to try and get Arms and Fury done in one video because I've just got so many other videos to do. So we're going to try and go through it quick. We're going to ignore really small talent changes, such as Iron Will, which has changed from a chance to resist your stuns to reducing the effects of your stun. Anything I consider too minor to mention, well, won't be mentioned. Except for the fact I just mentioned it. Before we get any further, just want to say a quick thank you to all you guys who have either joined as Patreons, because there are patrons now, so thank you guys, and to everybody in the scrolling banner below who has joined the channel as a member. More on how you can support the channel at the end of the video. But you get the point. We're only going to look at the talents that are big changes so we can get through both trees nice and quick. I promise I won't forget anything important. So starting with tier 1. Rend looks like it had a nerf, but guess what this noob left out of the ability changes at the start? Rend has been reworked, but only for new ranks which you obtain in Wrath. For rank 9 and 10, you now do 35% more damage with Rend if the target is above 75%. And the base damage is reduced, but you get a lot more damage now from your weapon damage. So while this talent only gives you 20% extra bleed damage for 2 points, instead of the 75% you get with 3 points in TBC, you're still better off. You now get an extra 4 rage when you charge from the improved charge talent, and also Tactical Mastery has packed its bags and left the protection tree to set up home in the arms tree. Moving down, Taste for Blood is a new talent and an amazing one at that. Whenever your Rend ability causes damage, you have a 100% chance of allowing the use of your Overpower ability for 9 seconds with 1 charge, and this effect cannot occur more than once every 6 seconds. So the fact that you can use Overpower with that whopping extra 50% crit chance from improved Overpower so frequently to then more often than not crit and apply your deep wounds is massive. Sweeping Strikes and Death Wish have moved round, so Sweeping Strikes you'll now find in the Arms tree and Death Wish you'll find in the Fury tree. More on that when we get to the Fury tree. It's worth noting it's 5 charges now, down from 10 in TBC, but still amazing for Arms because let's face it, Fury has enough cleave. Mace specialization has changed completely. Where it used to give you the chance to stun the target, it now ignores up to 15% of the enemy's armor while using maces. Much better for PvE now, and don't make you feel so bad using a 2-handed mace in braids. Sword specialization has also changed. The proc chance of it has doubled from 5% to 10%, but it's now got a 6-second internal cooldown before it can proc again. Trauma is going to make every feral DPS love you in the raid because they don't need to mangle anymore. Trauma causes your crits to make the target take 30% more damage, also known as Warrior Mangle, and because you crit so much, you can more or less guarantee it's going to be up all the time. Improved Slam has moved over in the Arms tree from Fury, and you'll be using Slam a lot. Strength of Arms is a new talent, and it increases your total strength and stamina by 4% and gives you 4 expertise. All good, useful stats, obviously, so a nice new addition. Improved Mortal Strike has an extra 5% damage and only costs 3 points now. And now this talent really needs a lot of love. Juggernaut, so good. Your charge ability is now usable in combat. The cooldown is increased by 5 seconds, but also following a charge, your next slam or Mortal Strike has an additional 25% chance to crit if used within 10 seconds. This is just amazing for charging to an ad, having that extra chance to crit to get trauma up almost instantly. Just so good. When it comes to Unrelenting Assault, I've always found this talent really weird. And if I'm honest, someone has a clue what was going through the devs' minds, answers in the comments below, please. So Unrelenting Assault reduces the cooldown of your Overpower. Okay, that's good. And Revenge. What? Revenge. By 4 seconds. And increases the damage done by both by 20%. If you strike a player with Overpower while they're casting, their magical damage and healing will be reduced by 50% for 6 seconds. Let's take a minute to really appreciate the PvP utility that's attached to that. It's great. The thing I'm confused about is Revenge. Why so deep in the arms tree are you getting something for protection? I'm not sure. Another huge talent here is Sudden Death, where your melee hits have a 9% chance of allowing the use of Execute regardless of the target's health. And in addition, you keep at least 10 rage. This later in the game gets made even better by the tier 10 bonus where you can get 2 charges. Although by this point, arguably, you're going to see the, I'd say 90% Fury Warriors, 10% arms by the time you're actually in ICC getting your tier 10 bonus. But there'll still be some people playing arms, and this is very good. And then one of the real key reasons we all want that arms warrior, or combat rogue, but at the start of Wrath of the Lich King, they're mostly going to be assassination. Blood Frenzy. Not only does it increase your melee attack speed by 10%, but also your rend and deep wounds increase the physical damage taken to the target by 4% for everyone. So thank you, Arms Warriors. Before we get on to the final big talent, we've got Wrecking Crew, where your melee critical hits enrage you, increasing all damage caused by 10% for 12 seconds. This effect does not stack with Enrage. It's fair to say, with the amount of crit you're going to have and the amount of crits you're going to be doing, thanks to things like improved overpower, this is going to be up 100% at a time, unless you're really unlucky. And the last one, the big one, the one that makes most of you moist just seeing it, Blade Storm. Is it a gnome with Ravager? No, it's a talent. You instantly whirlwind up to 4 nearby enemy targets, and for the next 6 seconds you will perform a whirlwind attack every second. Whilst this beast of an ability is going off, it cannot be stopped unless killed. So I suppose we better hope you don't get stopped. So that's all the important changes or additions to arms. Now we're going to go and look at all the big changes in the Fury tree, so additions or major changes. If there's any talents where you look and you're like, he didn't talk about this, again, it's probably because I didn't think it was worth spending time on. So over in the Fury tree, we've got Armor to the Teeth, which increases your attack power by 3 for every 108 armor you have. 3 attack powers, 3 attack power, and you expect to get quite a lot of armor once you're pimped out, so good stuff. Barely anything noteworthy changes until we get down to Enrage, which where in TBC, your Enrage gives you 25% melee damage for 12 seconds, up to a maximum of 12 swings following you receiving a critical strike. Now it gives you 30% chance of a flat 10% damage bonus for 12 seconds after being the victim of a damaging attack. It doesn't stack with Wrecking Crew from arms, and it's a really weird one to sit in a DPS tree because, well, who wants to get hit? So most of the time, you'll probably find yourself skipping this talent anyway. You now get Death Wish instead of Sweeping Strikes. We covered that earlier in the arms tree, but in case you're unfamiliar with Death Wish, it increases your physical damage by 20%, but increases damage taken by 5%. You can shave a minute off the cooldown of this later with another talent. Oh, here it is. Awkward. Intensified Rage reduces the cooldown of your Blood Rage, Berserker Rage, Recklessness, and Death Wish abilities by 33%. All extremely useful abilities that you're going to be using regularly, so all good in the hood. Improved Whirlwind used to reduce the cooldown, but now it instead increases the damage by 20%. I was going to skip past this talent, but honestly, 20% damage is worth mentioning. Improved Berserker Stance sees a massive change, going from 10% extra AP and 10% threat reduction to 20% strength and 10% threat reduction. This is a real juicy change overall. This talent makes me feel really uneasy. It's like in arms where Blizzard wanted to give you Mangle, and now they want to give you Leader of the Pack as well. Why do Blizzard hate Druids? So yeah, Rampage is now just a flat 5% crit for you, your raid, and your party. Blood Surge is huge, and this is where your tier 10 bonus comes in again later in the game. Blood Surge causes your Heroic Strike, Bloodthirst, and Whirlwind hits to have a 20% chance of making your next slam instant cast for 5 seconds. Once you're in your tier 10, the set bonus will give you 2 charges. Don't get me wrong, it's strong before tier 10, but with the set bonus, it's just the icing on the cake. Heroic Fury is a nice cooldown, and probably look at it as a PvP talent, which, don't get me wrong, it's very nice for PvP, but definitely has its uses in PvE, as it removes an immobilization effect on you and refreshes the cooldown of your intercept. So using this for double intercepting if you need to go between mobs is, as my man would say, very nice. Unending Fury increases the damage done by your Slam, Whirlwind, and Bloodthirst abilities by 10%. I really hate getting this far down in a tree and then finding something so boring. You know, don't get me wrong, you know, looking at it, 10% extra damage, that's cool, 10% extra damage with those abilities that you're going to be using a lot, but come on, you want something really juicy, something I don't know. And finally, a really boring talent joke. Titan's Grip. Yes, boys and girls, you can now dual wield two big two-handed weapons like you're some sort of barbarian from Diablo. You get a 10% physical damage reduction penalty while doing so, but having two massive beasts in your hand sure makes up for that. And that's all the talents. And I've done that super quick time, but I am 100% confident that you know everything you need to know about Arms and Fury. Big changes to the talents. So now let's have a little look through the glyphs. Ordinarily, again, don't hate on me, warriors. I'm not doing this video differently to be lazy. I love the warrior, but ordinarily I put one glyph on at a time and we talk about it. But there's so many warrior glyphs that can be used in certain situations, whether it's PvP, PvE, or even a boss-by-boss basis, that we'll just have a look on Atlas and have a little glimpse over all of the glyphs that you could possibly use. So we'll start with the minor glyphs because we'll get through these quick. You've got Glyph of Battle, which increases the duration of your battle shout ability by 2 minutes. So if you're not familiar with a glyph system, you can use 3 minor glyphs and 3 major glyphs. So minor glyphs, generally, there's not many more than 3 you would even want to use, but sometimes with the major ones, particularly with Warrior, there can be a lot of options. Back to it. So Glyph of Battle is one of those where you're definitely going to use it. As a DPS warrior, you're going to be using Battle Shout, and you're going to have Battle Shout improved most of the time, so an absolute no-brainer. Glyph of Blood Rage reduces the health cost of your Blood Rage ability by 100%, so this could be one that you consider. Glyph of Charge increases the range of your charge ability by 5 yards, so this could absolutely be worthwhile. Glyph of Command increases the duration of your Command and Shout ability by 2 minutes. Now, you're not going to use Glyph of Command and Glyph of Battle. It's going to be one or the other. Generally, tanks use Glyph of Command, DPS use Glyph of Battle. Glyph of Enduring Victory just increases the window of opportunity in which you can use your Victory Rush by 5 seconds. Glyph of Mocking Blow increases the damage of your Mocking Blow ability by 25%, so definitely a tank minor glyph, not a DPS. And Glyph of Thunderclap increases the radius of your Thunderclap ability by 2 yards. So you can certainly see the sort of ones that you would be using here, maybe Glyph of Charge, Glyph of Battle, Glyph of Blood Rage, potentially Enduring Victory. The other ones you would pretty much just leave for your tanking spec. When we get to the major glyphs, again, we'll just skip through any that are protection, but we've got Glyph of Bladestorm, which reduces the cooldown of Bladestorm by 15 seconds. This would be for your arms spec. We've got Glyph of Bloodthirst, which increases the healing you receive from your Bloodthirst ability by 100%. Whilst there's no DPS gain here, this could be nice in PvP. Could be nice for certain situations, but probably not one you're going to use very often. Glyph of Cleaving, which increases the number of targets your cleave hits by 1. For heavy AoE fights, you could see this being very useful. Glyph of Enraged Regeneration. Your Enraged Regeneration ability heals for an additional 10% of your health over its duration. You could consider this a tanking glyph, but also in PvP, or even when you're just out in the world farming, maybe you find this useful. Glyph of Execution, where your execute ability deals damage as if you had 10 additional rage. Glyph of Hamstring, definitely for PvP, gives your hamstring ability a 10% chance to immobilize the target for 5 seconds. Do you see why we're looking at it like this? There really is so much choice, especially when you're thinking about PvP as well. So Glyph of Heroic Strike, where you gain 10 rage when you critically strike with your Heroic Strike ability. Spoke about this at length in the protection video. Glyph of Mortal Strike increases the damage of your Mortal Strike ability by 10%. Fairly straightforward arms glyph. Glyph of Overpower adds a 100% chance to enable your overpower when your attacks are parried. Not one you're probably going to see many DPS using. Glyph of Rapid Charge reduces the cooldown of your charge ability by 7%. Again, no DPS gain there, but utility-wise could be useful in certain situations. Glyph of Rending increases the duration of your rend by 6 seconds, particularly good for an arms warrior. Glyph of Sweeping Strikes reduces the rage cost of your Sweeping Strike ability by 100%. Glyph of Sunder Armor. Whilst it seems like just a prot warrior glyph, you might find this useful if there's 2 targets stood next to each other. You're the DPS warrior who is actually on Sunder Armor duty. Glyph of Victory Rush gives your Victory Rush ability a 30% increased critical strike chance. And finally, Glyph of Whirlwind, which reduces the cooldown of your Whirlwind by 2 seconds, which will certainly be a very popular Fury glyph. And that's it. I hope you found that useful. All the talents that need to be spoke about have been spoke about. We've had a quick look through all the glyphs. There's not really much input that I can give you on the glyphs, because whilst lots of them seem useful, there's still only a few that do give damage increases, let's be honest. Things like Whirlwind, Rending, and even Heroic Strike, for example, or even Mortal Strike for the 10% extra damage. But overall, warriors are in a really good place. And I know you probably watch lots of content creators who say, you know, warriors are going to be useless in tier 7. No one's going to want warriors. You know, protection tanks are rubbish. Fury and arms are rubbish. You just take arms just for the 4% physical debuff until you get combat rogues. Ignore all that. Warriors are good. Warriors do good damage. Yes, you're a bit of a sleeper if you like. You know, tier 7 out of the gate, you're not going to be ridiculously overpowered. But trust me, as you progress through Wrath of the Lich King and by ICC, you are going to be an absolute beast as whatever spec you want to play. Protection's only problem, and I know this is not a protection video, but their only problem is the fact of how strong protection paladins are. That's literally it. Protection paladins were knocked down a peg. Protection warriors would be probably the go-to tank. So warriors, don't be disheartened by what you hear by other people. Trust me, you will be able to clear all content from tier 7 to tier 10 on heroic as a fury warrior, as an arms warrior, and no, you won't be on the bench. So if you are a fellow brown friend who enjoyed watching that, please do like and subscribe. There is more warrior content coming, actually. In fact, should you main a warrior is going to be the next warrior video I do, and it should be out in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. Smash that like button. Smash it like you're trying to smash an egg. I couldn't think of anything funny. Oh, and subscribe to the channel as well. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.